Now, on June 5 this year, the Nigerian government officially put an indefinite ban on Twitter, restricting it from operating in Nigeria after the social media platform deleted tweets made by President Muhammadu Buhari warning the southeastern people of Nigeria of a potential repeat of the 1967 civil war due to the activities of separatist agitators and rhetoric going on that platform. Now, the Nigerian government claimed that the deletion of the president's tweets and allowing tweets from non-state actors to stay sends a wrong signal by Twitter, indirectly giving the non-state actors a voice capable of destabilizing the country. In his October 1st broadcast to the nation, the president announced that the ban on Twitter has been lifted pending the microblogging company meeting conditions set by the federal government. This, of course, is a cherry news to millions of Nigerians who have not been able to access Twitter since June 5. What are the conditions set by government for the microblogging site? Will Twitter be able to reach an agreement with the federal government? How effective is the ban so far? Well, let's listen to him.
Some users have misused the platform to organize, coordinate, and execute criminal activities, propagate fake news, and promote ethnic and religious sentiments. To address these negative trends, the federal government of Nigeria suspended the operation of Twitter in Nigeria on June 5, 2021 to allow the government put measures in place to address these challenges. Following the suspension of Twitter operations, Twitter Incorporated reached out to the federal government of Nigeria to resolve the impasse. Subsequently, I constituted a presidential committee to engage Twitter to explore the possibility of resolving the issue.
All right, joining me on this segment to look at President Buhari's speech on lifting of Twitter ban and other national issues, Adewale Ajadi, who is an economist and development expert based in London, but on a visit to Nigeria. And we have Osita Okechukwu, who is the Director General of the Voice of Nigeria and the chieftain of Nigeria's ruling All Progressives Congress. Let's start with you, Wale. What's been the view since President Buhari's speech? I mean, a lot of young people are excited. I saw lots of people trying to check their phones immediately, thinking, Twitter was back and so. What's been your experience and what are you hearing?
Well, it's always mixed. We are very forthright in our views, and we have a culture of criticizing government and governance rather than looking at what we all do together. My own sense of the Twitter thing, rather than any other person's perspective, is that the decision is critical in the space we are in the world. The social media platforms are private companies with commercial interests. The interest of this country is the responsibility of the president of this country, who is elected. These are non-elected parties. Then Twitter is not a person under Nigeria's law. So there are no checks and balances on Twitter. So I think the effort, the approach to try and get that checks and balance is the right thing. I'm not sure that banning is actually what should have been done, but I don't know the information the federal government has. But I'm quite sure that negotiation is something that's going to be critical with all social media platforms at some stage, not just in Nigeria, but across the world.
Okay,
so we're leading the world in that.
So, Osita, do you think that we've had a beneficial relationship between both the federal government and Twitter on this matter, which may actually benefit lots of young Nigerians who actually use that platform when eventually Twitter begins operation?
Let me start by saying that what a lot of Nigerians and friends of Nigeria do forget is that this is a president that fought the Civil War, had gone through the thick and thin, and now he's in charge of a country. And he was honest to say that in the past 18 months, there is heightened challenges comparable to the Civil War. For him, when he mentioned Twitter, as Wale said, I was excited. One, it shows that Mr. President appreciates the import of the social media and what he had to offer to especially the youth in terms of startup. And he's aware that when the Americans wrote him about Twitter, he said, yes, you see, a government of a country took interest in what Twitter is doing in Nigeria. So what we should also understand is that Mr. President means well to the country. All his public service had been patriotic for the common good.
Oh, okay, very interesting. The most important aspect here is the kind of rhetoric that goes on Twitter. A lot of people are enjoying the dividends of democracy as we celebrate our Independence Day, which is, the freedom to speak, express yourself, and all of that. Twitter is just one of several social media platforms. Even your organization, the Voice of Nigeria, and so many government organizations use it. I'm curious to find out, how have you been affected as an organization using this platform and other social media platforms? Did this decision by the federal government change the perspective or the kind of policy?
Can I remind
that, organizations
that
like
back
us?
2 years or thereabout ago, when the hype of the social media bill was there, some of us talked to Mr. President and we told him the freedom infrastructure is the edifice of democracy. Back in Germany, 70 to 80 years, no regime did better fiscal infrastructure than Hitler. In Italy, none did better infrastructure than Mussolini. And in Nigeria, President Buhari, President Jonathan, Yar'Adua of blessed memory, Obasanjo, they didn't do as much well.
Well, that's subject to debate, because even President Buhari said that in his statement. The PDP has replied him.
Let me land. The past 21 years did not beat Abacha's fiscal infrastructure. But Abacha attacked freedom infrastructure. That's why he's unpopular. Though you might say that Mr. President drove the fiscal infrastructure in Abacha regime by the Petroleum Trust Fund. But Mr. President is aware of that. That's why when the debate for the social media bill was going, Mr. President didn't throw his weight, because he knows what freedom infrastructure is about. So please, all we need to do is, for some of us who claim to be close to Mr. President, we'll tell him leave Twitter to return to Nigeria. The freedom of infrastructure cannot be closed in a democracy.
I really like that statement, freedom infrastructure. Well, a lot of people, Wale, have said that these governments use this same freedom infrastructure, the social media and all of that, to get into power. And then at the end, it looks like you want to muzzle it. But it's almost difficult, because we can't be practicing democracy and then we say we're an independent country and then you don't allow freedom of speech. But there's also freedom of conscience also. When people put out free speech, they have to ensure that there are facts to go with it. Journalists have also been cautioned by Mr. President that we should always do our fact check very well. In all of this, I want you to speak, as we head to 2023, how there can be a balance between politicians and all of that using the social media or other mainstream media to drive an agenda only for them to get to power, and then they want to muzzle the same platforms.
Making this a freedom of speech thing is wrong. Because if it was about freedom of speech, then not only Twitter would be banned, but Facebook would be banned, Instagram will be banned, many other companies will be banned. It's only one company. It's a private company. The second thing we have to be clear about is that with freedom of speech comes responsibility. What we have been seeing, and I'm not a Securitat, I love freedom of speech, I'm on all social media platforms. But what we have seen all over the world is people putting dangerous expressions on all platforms.
And how has that affected Nigeria?
And it's affected because the agitations you are seeing, they're not structured conversations. I'm a Yoruba man. I don't get to talk before someone says he's acting on my behalf to secede from Nigeria. There's hate towards Fulani people. Absolute hate. How do you hate a old people? How do you stereotype a old people as adsmen? What is the basis of that? What is the foundation?
We've also had some governors, like for example, the Katsina State governor, Aminu Masari, saying that a huge chunk of people who are into banditry and all of that are from that part.
Do you know the history of all the crimes we have in Nigeria? You can choose every single ethnic group and see the dynamics of
yes.
That. So
but that's not to say
you
that
cannot stereotype,
the entire
with respect, you cannot stereotype.
Should be stereotyped.
Yes,
actually.
exactly.
Yeah.
And you're talking about children who haven't got any stake in this by accident of birth, belong to a particular group. If I say this group is entirely responsible for something, I stigmatize that child. That's unconscionable. But when we look at 2023, what we have to do is have the platform or expression, as my Oga has said, but at the same time, all people are accountable for hate speech.
Can the government also be held accountable?
Certainly. They
Because
ought to
we see
be.
some rhetoric from some government officials, including the president, who has been accused of using certain words and terms that may not be favorable to certain regions and certain persons, and it makes them to want to fight back. And the only platform they have to fight back is through free platforms like
That's
social media.
not necessarily true, because they are objective. That's why we have processes for these things, for judging the quality of speech. I have not seen, and I don't want to go into the detail of it because I'm not here to defend the president. He can defend himself. He's very capable of that. But I have not seen any particular expression that says a particular group of people are criminal or are worthy of not living. If you read social media, if you are really a follower of social media, and this is across the world, we've seen what happened in America as a result of some of these postings. We saw what happened in January 6th in America as a result of reckless remarks and allegations. There has to be checks and balances.
Okay, very interesting. Osita, there's this question I wanted you to answer, which I didn't hear from you. How much were you affected as a government organization, or did the government agencies get affected during this Twitter ban? Because even the president was using Twitter, almost every government institution, trying to target that huge demography, the young population of Nigeria.
Before I come to your question, let me align with Wale. It's very easy to do cherry picking, to say Mr. President lampooned the media. But if you go through the statement once more, he started by saying that my government will engage in dialogue-based solutions. Dialogue-based solutions. In our communication doctrine, what essentially Mr. President has said is, one, there should be a balance on trustworthy journalism, fact-based journalism,
Absolutely.
and yellow journalism. As he said, all over the world, they are looking into it, not about banning.
So there's no attack on freedom of speech.
No, yes,
No.
so that there won't be, because freedom of speech is the edifice of democracy. For us in Voice of Nigeria, for instance, when you come into Voice of Nigeria, when I came in 2016, they gave me the act and handover notes. And in the act, he's saying almost, let me paraphrase
Very
what the act
quickly,
says.
because we're almost out of time.
No addition,
Segment.
no subtraction. Reflect Nigeria's vision the way it's reflected, and Africa. So it's not for us to try to impress Mr. President or Mr. Governor. When there was a waste to energy company that was launching in Kano, for instance, we play it that way. When the CBN came with the Anchor Borers program, we reflect the Anchor Borers program.
But when there was NSAS, how did you now tackle
we
that
did.
kind of issue?
We did. You cannot create news. That's the mistake a lot of people are making. The information platform, the infrastructure had gone beyond us. It's not more anything
And if you miss it,
cage.
people will read it on the social media.
Even if you cage it, you'll be deceiving yourself.
Very interesting, gentlemen.
Yes.
When we come back from this break that we're going on, we'll be talking about the national debate on rotational presidency and all of that. So it's time for a short break. When we come back, we'll talk on these national issues. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching This Week on Arise News, where we bring to you the best of conversations and analysis. We begin to coast home on the show with the controversial issue of zoning of political offices at party and national level, and how it affects Nigeria's stability, as the opposition People's Democratic Party has zoned its chairmanship to the north ahead of its October 30th convention, a development that has thrown open more national discussions on Nigeria's rotational presidency in the two biggest parties, the APC and the PDP. The chairman of the PDP zoning committee and governor of Enugu State, Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi, announced that apart from zoning the position of national chairman to the north, other positions within the national working committee of the party will be swapped between the north and the south. The committee had earlier said its mandate does not include zoning of offices of the president and vice president or other legislative positions. But with the traditions in the party, it means the PDP presidential candidate will likely come from the southern part of Nigeria. Pressure is now on the ruling All Progressives Congress to toe a similar line of national chairman to the north and presidential candidate coming from the south. What are the political permutations in all of this? If the presidential tickets of the two major parties go to southern candidates, will it guarantee Nigeria's political stability and reduce calls for secession? Well, I still have with me here in the studio Osita Okechukwu, a chieftain of the All Progressives Congress, and Adewale Ajadi, who is a development economist. So I come to you, Osita. Happy Independence once again, as we have been discussing the nation's issues. As we celebrate our 61st independence anniversary, these issues of rotational presidency have come up again. The PDP was trying to run away from it in one way or the other, but the party's constitution is there. They've done their own zoning now of the national chairmanship. Now the pressure is on the APC to also toe similar lines so that we have candidates, two candidates from the two biggest parties coming from the south, so that there will be less violence and the country can birth very well in 2023. Your views?
Let me start by saying that the issue of rotation, north-south, is rule-based. It's a settled matter. Anybody that wants to canvass, we don't want that, we want that, is a settled matter in the Nigerian lexicon. I think that those who are trying to promote it are just trying to either leverage to their home voters or party members.
Seeking home advantage.
Yes. Otherwise, when Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa was made the Prime Minister, another was not made the President, though ceremonial. Even in NBA, Nigerian Bar Association, Nigerian Medical Association, when Shagari, even in the military run, when Gowon,
so zoning is already
when
a settled
Gowon became head of
Nigerians.
state, even the second person actually to argue Ironsi was Gowon. Almost.
So
in,
even
in
the
real
military,
power calculus.
even the military zoned.
When Murtala came, he went to Ondo State to choose Obasanjo, or whoever that took the decision. Let's not bother about the matrix that led to the decision. But that was the case. Even when Mr. President became head of state and chose Idiabo, there was criticism by the side. I remember reading Daily Times, one of the foremost newspapers then, and they were telling us that Ofodile, as Attorney General, is more powerful in terms of power protocol, whatever Idiabo is doing. But it was queried. And suddenly, in 1979, Alhaji Shagari of blessed memory did not go to the north. He had good friends, a very liberal person that started as a teacher, that had a lot of friends. He belonged to a group called the Friendship Cycle, where even Aminu Kano, he was telling us the story in this same transcore, where Aminu Kano was member, until one time he hosted a meeting, and the Sultan of Sokoto told him, look, this man is pressure group, come and go party way. So, along the line, so if you start telling us, you don't want zoning,
he had to settle for
you want to, this is a settled issue, it's a ground norm, it's a rule-based matter.
Okay.
What you might say, because you have clout of power, oh, let it come from my village in Eke, in Enugu State. That's the little you could do.
Okay, very
But you
impressive.
can't choose the vice from the same region.
Yes, let's have your view, Wale. A lot of Nigerians, have been saying that, look, this zoning, just like he has said, is already fundamentally settled as a principle, and in most associations, schools, and all of that,
it's more than convention.
You can't come from the south and then you have a vice president from the south. There has to be that balance. So in this geopolitics that's ongoing at the moment, how do you think the nation can come out better and not worse?
Well, I'm not as settled as my Oga, but he has a history on his side and experience on his side. But my thinking is that zoning is an attempt to deal with a critical issue. In a country like Nigeria, unique in the world in the sense that it does not have one hegemonic group, cultural group or ethnic group. Most countries in the world has a power group. So if you go to Indonesia, the power group is in Java, and the presidency comes from Java. So we don't have that. We have three groups that are constantly competing and sometimes cooperating with each other.
You didn't add the fourth group, which is the combination of all the other minorities.
No, I was going to come to that.
Okay.
Just indulge me. So these three groups have come and have driven us to the position where we accept generally, as mentioned, zoning. But is it effective? And that's the question we have to answer. And I think there are better ways to get at these results, because what happens is a tyranny of the majority. If you say it goes to the south, it's going to be a Yoruba man or an Igbo man that's going to be the president. It's never going to be someone from one of the minority groups. It's not going to be a Do man. It's not. Do you see what I mean? So it's very rare. Jonathan is a very rare expression.
Having a minority of
minorities. minorities.
What's the view generally of Nigerian diasporans? You are in the UK. When you sit down in your cafes and all of that talking about Nigeria, what comes to your mind when you hear things like this?
I have to be honest, I'm an outlier. I can't speak on behalf of anybody else.
Yeah, but the reality is that most times you hear people saying that, look, just zoning should be jettisoned. It's not based on merit, and based on what you've seen in the developed countries, merit should take.
This is the point that my guy is making. You see people jockey for position. And in the Nigerian system, that's always been about who gets access, gets money. Whenever, and we're coming to a very unique election. Let me make this point. We are coming to a very unique election. We have a president that's, in my view, done very well in many areas. And in due course,
subject to debate.
No, but they can debate it. But in retrospect, Nigerians will come back to the facts. This is not opinion. This is facts. We'll come back to those facts. That's done well. But if he does well, he has coattails. If he's allowed to come out having achieved what he's achieved and the impact is clear to the people, which is being distorted at the moment, then he will have coattails enough to make sure that he has a successor of his choice.
Okay.
But the goal right now, and this is the politics of this, is to obscure that and to make sure that the successor, even within his own party, is the one that they want in different power groups.
Okay, very interesting. As we try to round off just in less than 60 seconds, let's talk about the issue of succession here, because this 2023 election is going to be very unique, and that's why you are seeing lots of people. This is the sitting president going away. So it's the succession politics that we are seeing. How can the two biggest parties and other political parties maintain the rhetoric so that we have a country at the end of it and not the country going with 2023?
If I'm Mr. President, for instance, I will like the parties, my membership, to decide. Why so? Is that I've done a study in this very country. I've been in politics for 43 years. I took off in 1978 in PRP, later NPN. Later
very quickly, because we have.
If I study, those who nominated, anointed anybody, came to grief.
Okay. So the president should not anoint anyone.
I wouldn't go that way.
Okay.
I would like you,
if you're popular
in Ekiti, and you hold the membership, I would like you to preside over the affairs.
I'm sorry, I just have to cut in now.
Sorry, okay, thank you.
Chieftain of the All Progressives Congress, and Adewale Ajadi, a Nigerian who is based in the UK, all have joined me here in the studio alongside others to talk about Nigeria 61.